"Hey, Raimi," Mika said, looking over to the small kid. He was still scrawny by anyone's standards. His pale-grained skin, a grayish-green tone, and big black eyes that had no pupils, very small in stature with somewhat oversized heads. All the telltale features of his given race, that of the Odo, a very common species. They spread out almost everywhere. They're known to have actually extremely advanced technology. Despite their weak physical forms, their intelligence is second to none. Many of them actually spend their lives as researchers, researching species from different places across the known galaxies, both animals and sentient races, monitoring them as they develop, taking stock of planets with habitable atmospheres and the creatures on them. They collect these things as information, and then use this information to barter and trade. By tracking the relevant habitability of planets, general resources, native species, including sentient ones that had culture, technology, and things like that, or were on the road to developing them. They could exchange this information with other species that were looking to find other habitable worlds, so that people could not waste time going after worlds that they could see in the distance, just to show up and find out that there's already a sentient race there, and that if they want it, they're gonna have to fight for it. That's simply far too much trouble. So most species will barter with them for information whenever they feel like spreading out to a new world that's outside of the known sectors. "Raimi, would you come over here for a minute?" Mika said, as the young boy blinked a few times, the lids scrolling sideways across his eyes, from the sides towards the center and then back again. Me? I didn't do anything, I swear," the boy replied. I'm not trying to cause any trouble." "No, you're not in trouble, Raimi," Mika said. "I just have no intention of subjecting you to the same thing that I'm going to subject them to. I'd like you to come over here. Not because you're in trouble, but because I'd like to offer you a place on board the ship. Things are going to change around here. This isn't going to be a pirate ship like it was before. I want to fill this ship with good people. I'll try to do good things if I can. Who knows, I might even turn it into a sort of refuge for forgotten people. People that need a space home. Regardless, you don't deserve to be with the rest of them. So, I'd like to offer you the ability to stay on the ship with me. Or, if you'd like, a ride home. I know your home world is a far drive from here, but I could start making my way there. It might take us a while, but if you want to go back home, I can take you." So you'd really let me stay?" Raimi replied. "On board this new ship? I mean, I'm not really that good at much. I mean, I'm pretty smart, I can fix stuff, but that's normal stuff. I mean, this ship seems to be made of stuff that I don't understand at all. I'm frankly not sure I could be much use," Raimi said, looking at the floor, seeming a bit down on himself. "Don't worry about it, kid," Mika replied. "What you don't know, you can learn. And I'm not all hung up on how useful you're gonna be. And don't be so down. You have lots of talents. I've seen how good you are with the gadgets and stuff around here. I'm sure that with a little proper instruction, that you could do much more. You're a good kid, and you're welcome here, useful or not." Thank you, Captain Mika?" "You're damn right it is," she said, raising her hand and giving him a small salute. "Yes, Captain," the boy replied, giving her a salute right back. "Okay, stand beside me, Rainy," she said, placing her hand on his shoulder and pulling him beside her for a moment, looking out towards the rest of the crew. "Now, as far as the rest of you are concerned, you're a bunch of lowlives. I hated every day I spent with you, and honestly, I hate all of your guts. The only reason you're not floating in space right now is because I'm nicer than your captain was. And less dead, of course. Now, hop your asses on board that ship before I decide to change my mind and stop being friendly." With no delay, the members of the crew quickly began to make their way on board the vessel. As the last one entered the ship, the back doors closed slowly, locking them inside. Then, the very large doors to the docking bay began to open. Where before there was a large wall of silver metallic liquid, it seemed the energy field had been restored, except it seemed far more functional and clean now than it was before. In fact, everything seemed much more clean. Like polished steel, like this thing had just come out of the factory. As Mika looked out into space, Rainy standing beside her, the small vessel lifted off of its place on the docking bay floor and floated out, propelled by the jets behind it, safely passing through the field of the docking bay out into space. In the distance, they could see the somewhat reddish outline of the planet below, filled with various different natural environments, where the crew could live their lives until they were picked up. "So, Captain Mika, does this mean I'm your first mate?" Remy said, looking up to Mika. I'm not sure if you're ready for the first mate seat yet. That's a lot of responsibility. For now, let's just say you're the first official member of the crew. So, you can go ahead and pick whatever room on the ship you want, except for mine. There's going to be a problem with that. I did liquidate all of the old rooms." "Really?" Mika said, looking over at the silver floating orb that had been vibrating at her. "Why would you do that?" "Well, I thought you were making all of the crew members leave. I felt it an unnecessary waste of space to continue having them. I thought I could simply reconstruct them once you began to pick up more crew members. But I did not expect you to select anyone from the members of the old crew. Unfortunately, your memories of this Raimi were not included within my download. However, this is a problem that is easily resolved. Thanks to the systems that I absorbed from the original ship, I should be able to produce him a room very quickly. It shouldn't take more than a few minutes. It will simply require that I shift around some resources." "Okay, good," Mika replied. "So, you're going to be able to handle piloting, right, Exovol?" Mika asked. "Yes, piloting the ship is no problem, generally. It should be quite easy to get us to our next destination. If you'd like, I have prepared the bridge. You can sit there and work over my schematics. Perform what redesigns you feel necessary while we travel." "Awesome," Mika replied. "Hey, Raimi, are you any good at design?" I'm not really sure. I could give it a try if you want, Captain Mika," Raimi replied, smiling a bit. And with that, the two began to make their way through the ship, taking note at how pristine it now looked on their way to the bridge, and how much bigger it felt. The design format seemed the same, yet it was obvious to them, since they had been on the ship before, that its size had increased dramatically. It was nearly twice the size of the previous vessel. All of the hallways were bigger, and everything seemed to scale up, which made the whole thing feel much more comfortable. Before, it seemed far too cramped, but eventually, Raimi and Mika made their way to the control room, the bridge of the ship, where basically everything was controlled. And there, they sat and began to work over Exovol's designs and schematics, tossing back and forth ideas about how to move things around and make everything comfortable, change the way things looked. And they stayed like that for the remainder of the trip. Their next journey would take them several weeks, even with the Delta Drive as functional as it was. So nearly every day of that time, Mika and Raimi spent their time together, talking, laughing, eating their lunches, and working over the schematics. And they came up with a great deal of changes, all of which brought smiles to their faces.